Good morning. It is 10:30 a.m. It is Sunday morning, and that means it's time for Sunday Club, a weekly live stream where each week we take a look at doing some Ruby on Rails coding and building an app together. And the app that we are looking at is about kind of an event registration and ticketing application, and it focuses on we're going to try and kind of focus a little bit on group bookings and like team events and things like that. We're just kind of looking at some of the kind of the fun things around the domain design and just all of that fun stuff to do with starting right at scratch for an application. And recently we've been prototyping things out. So any follow-up? Yes, one bit of follow-up. I actually managed to do another live stream outside of the Sunday morning sessions where we focused on some user interface design, and I was super excited to get back into Sketch app for Mac. Ages ago in the in the channel, we looked at Figma and did some kind of like rough stuff around there, trying to tie it together with Tailwind for the previous application we were working on. And I mentioned last night, I basically just didn't like it. Was a little expensive because I don't really use it that much, whereas Sketch is kind of a bit more, it's a little cheaper, and also I had some more experience with it, and it was super, like I really enjoyed it, super fun to get back into it last night, and we started actually basically trying to build the equivalent components that we might have in View component in Rails in Sketch, and then looking at how those components now work, because they've added loads of new fancy features to and they're not called components in Sketch, they're called symbols, but they're like the equivalent reusable thing, and it was super fun to get into that. So if you're interested in that and kind of seeing anything more about Sketch at all, you can check that stream out. It'll still be on Twitch, and it will also be in the YouTube channel archive. So what do we want to take a look at today? Well, last week, I actually can't remember exactly where we got to, but I know I did a little bit more work on this after the stream. So let's just dive right in and work out where we got to last week, because that will be the most effective way for me to remember what we did. So, oh yeah, I was working on actually having an event record. I think that was the last thing I was doing in front of the TV last week. Oh, and I remember this because I was going to watch the Grand Prix, the F1 Grand Prix last week, and it got rained off. So that's why I ended up doing a bit more work on this, because I was trying to eat lunch and watch the Grand Prix, and there was no Grand Prix in the end. So I made some changes on here. So what did I do? I'm pretty sure that I implemented delegated types, which is something we'd spoken about on the previous stream, which is like a new Rails way, like a fancy way of it's in a place where you might have used single table inheritance in Rails. It switches it more to essentially being polymorphic, but gives you a nice way of kind of thinking of it as one thing. I think I didn't really get very far with this. I set this up and it didn't quite do what I thought it did. So we talked about it on, I think, last week's stream, maybe the week before, where when we were purchasing our tickets, I was thinking of this idea of having like a cart that then that got turned into an order, and an order would then have the cart was made up of products, but each product could have a different product type. And so I called them productables in that typical Rails way. And then I think what I was thinking is that when you then had a collection of products, anything that was on the productable record, which would be like the ticket type or e-commerce item, the attributes would be like auto-delegated. So I think if it was like ticket type had, I don't know, like an attribute called, I don't know, group ticket type, or group tickets or something like that, you could do product dot group ticket or product ticket type on an instance. And I'm not 100% sure if that's that worked. I didn't think it did, but I was only playing with it last week. So I wouldn't mind digging around in that a little bit more. So I did that, but it did work. So now when you say, give me all of the items for this guy, I think I must have changed it in the controller, the cart controller, I would guess. Oh no, we're still using, I think here you could do like, I don't know, because you must have to make this is fine because this is just populating the subtype, but it must be when you actually make the order in the order builder. Do you do order creator, sorry. So make it so that you had to then build, I guess that's in product and then that's in the product. Yeah, okay. I obviously didn't get as far as that as I thought. Okay, well, that's fine. We're just catching up on what I was trying to get done last week. But we got to the place last week. Let's just take a look at the front end. There is a server running. So we got to the stage where you could, I think it was like cart or something. It was not cart. Was it order? Orders new? Yeah, okay, cool. So we had this ticket type 1, so you would need something in the system that represented that. And then if you bought 2 of those, you could click next. And in the system would then be the attendee that you create. So the attendee is like the representative of like a ticket. And it creates the line item. It should have done that twice. It creates the order. Bump this font size up. Oh, another bit of follow-up is that I did finally Google to see. So we should now be streaming at a glorious, I think, 1080 rather than 720. So for those who had requested that, that should now be happening. I think that's definitely happening on YouTube. I don't know how that works on Twitch, but hopefully that should be working for those asks. So if you watch this back, you should now be able to just put it at normal resolution. And it should just work from now on, I think. I hope. So insert into orders, insert into attendees, insert into insert line items, insert into attendees, insert into line items. So we created 2 tickets in the database. And we're breaking that down into 2 separate line items, even though only one got placed into the basket, which is the subject of the last few streams, and kind of worrying about that. Now, where I wanted to go today, so we're not doing anything in the UI, so we could take the person to the next step, which would be like, you would need to fill in the information about the tickets. So you'd be like, well, there are 2 things you need to do. You need to gather the more than 2 things you need to do, but at least 2 things. You'd need to gather the information about the purchaser, but then any information that you have put that's per attendee, you'd need both of those. You would also want to do the allocation. So at that point, when you create these attendees, that might be worth a whole other stream. Like, how do you model that allocation and the concurrency issues around that? So you're basically blocking out those. Let's say here I purchased 2 tickets. You're basically allocating those tickets with an expiry date and saying, right, those are pre-allocated for this checkout, for this order. But they won't be. The person has to confirm their order. They have to purchase by the time they get to the end. The end of that. Yeah. Okay. And then you'd have to take payment and do the rest of the checkout process. Okay. Fair enough. Not too. That is kind of interesting. But the thing I wanted to look at is the group booking aspect. So if we go over to Eventbrite, where we were before, looking at how they handled this, they basically allowed or disallowed group bookings on a ticket type basis. And I'm assuming that that's a really good idea. I'm assuming that's a really good idea. because I think it limits your complexity. And why do I think that's a good idea? Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to go into my events. My dashboard, where's my... Oh, okay, for this event. So I want to go to tickets. And what we want to say is we only have a general admission ticket. Did we have an event that had... Is this the only one we had? I thought we had multiple events in Eventbrite. Oh, have they passed? Are they now archived or something? Status published. Oh. Only got this one. Okay, so let's go back to the tickets for this event. We've only got general admission, advanced settings. Oh, it wasn't in the ticket, was it? It was in the order options, order form. Yeah, so this is when we were looking at how complex the UI is and like where you put stuff like this. Okay, so activate group registration. Allow to activate group registration, you must collect information for each attendee. So this will change presumably. So if because this is collect information from buyer only or each attendee, we activate this. Okay, and I'm assuming this then goes away and we can't then change that back. That takes us to the group registration pay settings. So let's do team. And here is why I think this might be a good idea. So let's say that here we're setting max attendees per group. Bump the font size up again. So that is how many people can join this group. You can also say a minimum and maximum capacity per ticket type. And so if you allowed groups to go across ticket types, presumably the complexity is that you might have enough of those tickets. So they're like, okay, I would like 5 adult tickets and 5 child tickets. But all 10 people should be in the same group. So you could have enough tickets, but you would oversubscribe the group. And is it the hassle with dealing with both of those limits at the same time? Like checking them both at the same time? I don't know. Because presumably if you're checking one, you may as well check the other. But I'm guessing at Eventbrite scale, that is not as easy as it sounds when they're doing like... I don't know, like, I guess Eventbrite must have that issue where they sell like a mass participation events. And so they go on sale and like they just sell out like that. Group registrants only. Oh, I see. So you can't buy a ticket without in a group. I'll display them on the homepage. Yeah, okay. This is a team. This is a team description. And then this idea of a group manager is because the event organizer didn't seem to have a UI to manage the groups, which is what we were looking to do, because we were potentially looking at having the request that we had previously was like, oh, can we pre-configure the groups and then they have to join them, or after attendees have set the groups up, can we then administer them? So they set them all up, but then we're like, oh, as organizers, we're going to move people around, which was a common request that we got. So we supported group registrations, but not like not flexibly enough. Basically, you could just register as a group, but you couldn't then join with another group. There wasn't like a higher assistant group that you could join. So now we have, so now I presumably can't set this back. Deactivate group registrations. Okay, cool. There's a maximum of 10 per team. Okay, great. Let's set that up. And let's do another ticket type. So the reason I'm interested in this is that I want to know what I'm about to let myself in for. So let's do yeah, so if we do like a family ticket, 100 of these, and these are £10. Because if you remember, we also had on was it like Event Create or one of those other sites? We had this idea of like they called it good for. So each ticket generated that number of attendees, basically took up that many allocation slots on the event. And like Eventbrite doesn't seem to deal with that. When we looked at this last time, they were like, oh, just set them up as different ticket types. And you'll have to manage the capacity yourself, because that's where you gain like, I want to buy a family ticket, and that's actually 10 tickets. And so across all of the ticket types, your kind of allocation is still correct. Whereas in Eventbrite, one family ticket could represent 10 people. So you might put, I guess you're like, if you sorry, I'm gonna jump into the end. Let's say you do a family ticket for 10 people, but the 2 people want to be in 2 different teams. Oh, you get a discount if you buy. Oh fuck me, this is so complicated. Like, let's say that you do a family ticket and you sell 10. Each family ticket is good for 10 tickets, but you get a discount on the price. So you get 10 people in that, but they want to be spread across 2 teams. Like, are teams always maybe set per attendee? And that's how you do it in the UI. Like, you make no indication up front. Maybe the order isn't associated with the group. Maybe it's each attendee. That would actually be pretty cool, where you could like set it on the way in as the default for the order. But when we just had to set, that's actually a really interesting idea. So we just had to set that when in Eventbrite, when we were doing a group ticket sale, we had to turn off only collect information from the purchaser, from the buyer. You had to turn on per attendee forms, which is fine because you need everyone's like first name, last name, email address, whatever. But you could also say, well, in that, if we're going to do the same thing, you could say, well, then the purchaser can pick a team up front, but then in the UI where they were having to do the per attendee form, you could specify which group they're in. But that still wouldn't help you with what is the one that said good for? It wasn't Ticket Tailor, it was like that weird we'll just put in like ticket. It wasn't Event Create because that was kind of fancy. It was the one that was slightly different. Damn it. It'd be really helpful to remember. Oh, hang on. I actually have a YouTube channel where I record all these stupid things, so I can just go and look at that thing. Wow, this is really helpful having... Okay, so if I go back a couple of videos, I think... Might be this one. I'm just gonna mute this so it's not playing. I'm just looking on the other screen. Sorry, I'm just gonna go and look and see other we must have been looking at other ticketing applications. Try booking. I think it might have been that one. Right, I think it might have been try booking. Hopefully I'm still logged in. I am not logged in. I actually have one password open on another screen. Bear with me just a second. Okay, so I think it's this one. How do I... yeah, I remember this one being more complicated. Pricing group? Oh man, yeah, I remember this one being complicated. Good for. Okay, right. So it was this one. Okay, so this is trybooking.com. So here you do we had a ticket. So they don't really have this idea of ticket types. They had pricing groups. Oh no, they do call it ticket type. Right, okay, so ticket type. They're pro runners, that's teams, and that's good for 5 people. Okay. And then they you set the limits separately. This is so good. Like I love that. Like I'm like, oh, am I just being stupid? It is this complicated. And then I come to this UI and I'm like, oh no, like this is genuinely a thing that could bake your noodle if you really like wanted to do every type of variation. So in here, the number available for sale. Okay, so they're really going into the weeds with it. So can I try and go to this event? Preview event. Right, okay, but they did actually show that it was 5 there. And then when I go to here, I still do, okay, so I do still get, okay. So even though it was good for, sorry, that was my mistake. So even though it's good for 5 people, you still have to do the per attendee. So team name, you could still get the people to pick their team here. So on the way in, you could be like, hey, are you purchasing for a team? Yes. Okay, so what would this actually look like in code? You could... So you could model it at the event level if you didn't care about it being per ticket type. So I don't think I put any associations here, but an event presumably has many products, one of which is ticket type. But an event could also have many, you could just call them attendee groups, I guess, if we're taking attendee to be a synonym for ticket. The only difference would be if you didn't take attendee to be a synonym for ticket and you actually had an allocation record that was the ticket, the attendee information would be different. So when they, and that could be what got grouped. What do I mean by that? So at the point here where you're clicking in here, when you're clicking next step, that creates your order, right? Your first order in a draft state or whatever it is, and you've got to go through the checkout process, I'm assuming want to do that allocation the moment you create the order. So in the order creator here, which apparently doesn't do the creation, or we delegated that to the products for some reason I can't remember. So in here, oh, this is because for each product type, there would be different rules on how to build its line items out. Okay, that's why it's delegated through. Although maybe you wouldn't do it to this. Maybe you would actually have like order creator. I don't know. You could have another class that was responsible for that, I guess. Anyway, that's not really what I'm too worried about. Here, you could be like the line itemable is this, but there could be what would you call it? I guess an attendee allocation or an event allocation, like. Maybe just an allocation, although that seems like. And then this could have, again, I have no idea if this is how a good idea for this, but then you could have like expires at, and there was a setting in and then you would need to you would want them all to be identical across the order. So you would do like, again, you wouldn't do it like this. Something where you're just like, this is just super rough code to get across what I'm trying to get across. So allocation expiry. Do. It could be time or something like that. So in here, you could then have the allocations there where it expires. That would obviously need to know the attendee, which would be the line itemable. And it would need to know the event, which we hadn't modeled at all until now. But it would be... that would probably have got passed in, but it would be like order.event or maybe it would have got passed in separately. We just haven't modeled event, but it would need to be there. We'll just put event. We'll figure that out later. And what that's saying is I am taking up a spot. And at the point of creation here, because I think we're still like within a transaction. No, okay, we'd need to solve that as well, because you would need all of these to work. You couldn't have the first three get you don't want the first three to get allocated and start taking up those spaces unless all the allocations work. So you could do something like, I'm not saying you'd even do it here, but is any of this a good idea? So if anything raises within here, it'll roll back. I'm guessing at Eventbrite they have like fancy pants. Just at the sheer scale they're at, they probably have more fancy pants stuff than basic stuff like this. Because I don't think you would have... Like, would you have... Like, would you start to lock... But you wouldn't lock the event, I guess. I don't know. because when you do the create here, so let's say we then had an attendee allocation record. Is it too basic to just do something like validates check? This probably has limits on scaling, I would guess. So you'd want to do, what would you want to do? You'd want to check ticket type. Because when you do that allocation check, is going to be important as well. So let's say that you do it just before the write. With heavy concurrency, you'd be like, hey, can I insert this record? And it'd be like, yeah, cool. Then you'd insert it at exactly the same moment that another record had been inserted. And so you've then got the wrong number. Would you want to do one? Oh, it doesn't seem very good to do a pre-write and a post-write. So maybe you do have to lock. For what? For that event? That doesn't sound great. I need to go and look at some Rails concurrency stuff. Like high. I'm trying to think of what we use locks for. Anyway, let's not worry too much about that because it doesn't matter. Just trying to think through like what is actually happening. So you need to check type allocation limits. Check group allocation limits. So you're like, okay, how many tickets of each type can we have? Can I be in this group? Which takes us back to where we're trying to get to, because in here, no, you wouldn't have that yet. Yeah, shit. So at this point, right. So at this point, you have to make the allocation. That's why they ask for the group up front, because you say, well, there are a maximum of 10 people that can join this group, or whatever the limit is. At what point do you check that quantity limit? Because you don't want to start the order and pre-allocate those tickets if actually they can't join this stupid group. Whereas if you collect that right up front, then you at least know that. And then if they switch group during the checkout, you just have to run that check again. And I guess this is about the user experience of doing the pre-allocation during the checkout. You can't. Well, I guess you just want to limit the kind of false allocations, because you're just creating a crappy user experience for everyone else because they're all gone and it seems sold out. Like maybe you don't care about that. Maybe it's fine because they're going to expire, and if people want the tickets, they'll come back. That doesn't sound right. But then you also want to know that they're going to be in the right group. So let's say that we hadn't collected the group information at all. We actually couldn't do any check other than like, are these tickets still available for this event for this ticket type? Great. Okay. So then the allocation exists. We then get to the next stage and ask for groups. And at that point, we do the check. Let's go and take a look at like, we've been looking at, because I wanted to make a generic ticketing platform, but let's go and take a look at like, is it, like some of the sports based ones and like mass participation events ones. I think it's active, and like, I think these guys are like big. Can I sign up for this? Or is this one of those ones where it's like contact us for a pricing? Oh, hello in the chat. Interesting problem. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of keeps eating away. Every time I think I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds fine. It's just more and more complex. Right, I think these guys might be a bit big. I think this is like fancy. Oh no, okay, right. This is normal. Okay, get started. Can I just sign up for this? Okay. I am not going to give them my date of birth, funnily enough. Let's just give them a date. I don't really want to give them most. What do I actually need to give them? Phone number. Oh no, I've please enter a valid phone number. Okay, that's a valid number. And then let's do was it active? And we'll just generate a password. I'm going to do it on the other screen because then it won't show and no one can steal my active account. Being super secure. Hang on, I'm just going to generate one password. Bear with me. Copy this over. This. What's the URL? Active.com. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to paste this in here. Super secret. Yep, I have read those. Create my account. Oh, we're going to be small. We're going to do like 500 to 1,000. So what is this basically? Before I go in here, I'll make this a bit bigger as well. So the ticketing and event registration systems we've been looking at are like generic, like you're running like anything. Like if that's some of the, when we looked at the user interface for Eventbrite, that was kind of some of the things were like they have to make this generic because they have no idea what you're running. Whereas there are then specialist event platforms that from when we were doing loads of good causes work, you had team-based activities. So this like active was like sporting a lot, things like that. Then there was like auctions. Then there was conferences is a big one. So conference event registrations is like its whole sub industry alone because conferences are super lucrative. But they're also pretty complicated because they're big sprawling events. They have events within the events. Like there's a lot going on there as well. And also, what else did we find? Yes, auctions was a big one. Like, I guess live would be the other one. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but like specializing in like music and festivals and like, yeah, I can't remember, but this is all from back in the day. Holy crap! Is this the step by step? Wow, am I on step 1 of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? Okay, so I'm gonna have. Okay, so this is a good example. So they do the event type is 1 of 4. Like that's pretty bold. Like whereas on Eventbrite it's like, hey, you might be running a coffee morning or meeting 3 friends in a library and just want to know who's coming, or you might be running a concert for 10,000 people. This one is like, are you running an endurance event, a concert, a gala, or a festival? And if you're not running one of those, you can F off. Let's run an endurance event. We're going to run a test event, and it's going to be in a real place. I don't have a saved location. Oh, add a location. There we go. We're going to be in the UK because that's where I live. So I think this is going to be more. I think this is going to be interesting compared to the ones we've looked at, in terms of like what we could take for group bookings and things like that. So test location, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Let's do like the main street in town. Cool. Event date is going to be in November. Cool. What did we just say? Can I not just pick a saved address? Because that would be super handy. Oh, I hate this when they're like yelling at you before you've had a chance. Like, card. I haven't filled it in yet. Before it says up again. This is a fictional event. It's going to be in UTC will do. It's not UTC here. I think we're still in BST, but whatever. Whoa. Oh, okay. This is hardcore. I have to put my bank details in first. Let's just put in the name of a bank. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh. Okay. Maybe this isn't going to be. I mean, that is like. Okay, that's super bold. Like, we want your bank details, and there are 13 steps before you can start. Like, your user is invested by the time they've got to the end of that process. Like, that's whenever you go to those like user experience things, are like, oh, we just want to reduce friction to getting into the application and just like, you know, have people in and getting value from the product before we move in. That doesn't always, like, that is a really good thing to do, but if you want money from people, or there are like real roadblocks before they can actually use it, like, there's something to be said for like, don't let anyone else in. Like, if you're not going to give us your bank details, why are we going to let you pass the first step of this? Like, give us your bank details or get out. Which is not what this says, but like, I can't go any further without doing that, and I can't fake it by the looks of it, because I need a real sort code, unless they just. Okay, maybe I can fake it more. How many numbers are in a bank account number? That one. Okay. Holy shit! Why won't they let me? I'll just keep putting in the same one. Switch. IP to Okay, so maybe they do. Okay, well, I've faked it, but still, that's pretty bold. Like, they don't expect you to fake it. They want you to enter real information. Am I just onto the next step? Holy hell. This is so cool. Like, this is like a validation for me of how complicated this actually is. Public capacity. It's going to be 500 people. I don't know the difference between capacity and public capacity. Okay, so they allow team invitations to balloon the actual public capacity. Okay. Gender. You can block it by gender, and there's no other genders on there. Ooh, that doesn't feel great. Prevent duplicate registrations. Verify email address and checkout. Amazing. Registration categories. Okay. I'm going to keep going through this just out of sheer interest. So people are going to be running. And they're going to run 10K. So is this a ticket type? Is this the equivalent of a ticket type? Add a price. Individual chance entry. I don't even know what that means. That sounds really exciting. Like, you can gamble. Group registration team, non-participating team captain. What? There's like no effort to, like, you have to know the domain space you're working in to know what half these things are. Maybe £10. Priced per person. So this goes back to this kind of good for thing with the other one. Price per team. Minimum of 5, maximum of 15. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. I bet there are engineers working at these companies that have got all of this logic in their brain, and like like institutional knowledge of this is like, oh yeah, well when you're doing a time-based thing with a team of with price like this and all those other things, and like all the new engineers are like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. I'm just filling things in. Oh, you can change the price at different times. Okay, cool. Self-registration teams are not enabled. If you would like self-registration, so this is what we were looking at, self-registration teams. You can enable this on individual price categories using the previous page. Self-registration teams are selected for one or more categories for this event. Set up details below. Self-registration teams enable a team captain to create a team and each team member to register themselves. Example, corporate teams, community teams, fundraising teams. Okay, so that's kind of what we were looking at. But we didn't set one up, so you have to go back. Oh, fuck it, we'll just do that later. Self-edit setup. By setting up self-editing, you enable... This is just for one event. This is like the exact opposite of Eventbrite. So if you remember when it was like create a new event on Eventbrite, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, bosh. And you could publish the URL after the first one. Let's just do plus here to remind ourselves of what that was like. You only need to fill in this page to have a URL where your event lives, and everything else you can populate later. And it's 4 steps. And then this one, this one is like the exact opposite of that. So good. Enable participants to edit the registration information. Enable participants to transfer the registration to another participant. Purchase additional merchandise. So that goes back to what we were looking at with like shopping baskets. I'm just going to press save on the defaults of all of these. Form questions. So we'd looked at, oh God, participant name. Okay, let's just delete half of this stuff. Gender is a binary and it's the default by default. Guessing men's and women's must be something that's like really common on this platform. Oh, I can't turn off require a response for name. Can I do that for, or email? Okay, fine. Okay, fine, that makes sense. That's that. So that's the form. Form questions. Myself, someone else 18 or over. Edit the sections of someone else or over 18 or over. Someone else under 18, team member. I don't even know what that means. This is amazing. I'm just going to save that. Giving, so they've got just giving stuff built in. So you can have an event on there for the giving stuff. That was one of the things. So that is, was one of the things that we're looking at. So like this idea of having giving as part of the event registration process. So I talked on another stream about like gift aid as a pain in the bum for stuff like that. Merch stuff, fine. Waivers. So that's often done in other ones by like switching the event to per attendee forms and then like having it, or I've seen it done like this, and then having the checkbox for the waiver in the form, but obviously only the purchaser is actually agreeing to that, not the individual attendees. So sometimes definitely for good causes, they take they want an email address where they can reach all of the attendees, and then they have to email them out and then go and collect all of the waivers and stuff back for like health and safety or risk, all of that fun stuff. Emails sent out. Okay, cool. Wallet options. Fine. Okay, cool. .com listing. So this is like the page, because there was another one we looked at where it started with the event page. It was the exact opposite of this. It was like, here's your event. Oh, it was like Eventbrite. You filled in the basics, then it took you to the event page. And it was like, here's the thing you're actually editing, and it had like a block builder for the page. That was a cool approach as well. Blah blah blah. Fine. Oh, it's got the map. Cool. Okay. Like, this is so like deep. Enable active results. Don't know what that is. Activate registration later. You can activate your registration. I'm just going to say no, don't do that. It's just a test. Okay, so like we value your feedback. I'm not going to give them any feedback because I'm just looking. Your event is set up and complete. Registration will open the date you've selected. You can edit your registration event form at any time. Okay. Well, let's do view event summary. Oh, that has kind of blown my mind. I have to say, I didn't expect that. Event is not public. So here's my event. Oh, okay. So I can't even I can't preview the page. Okay. So, but people can register here. No, okay, because it's not open yet. Well, I feel a bit overwhelmed by that entire experience. So notice they have participants rather than attendees. And then you can, okay, so that wasn't an onboarding. That was basically each of the settings pages that then we change here. Okay. So it's not just the setup, it is the thing every time. Trade union membership. Okay, I think that's a lot. That's pretty US. Political opinions. If you can hear a weird noise, by the way, it's the washing machine in the background. They should pay you for filling that out. What? Wait, it actually had the pricing on the front page. Is this an expensive thing? Crap, I should have. Hang on, let me open up active event registration. Like, is it crazy expensive to use for as an event organizer? I think I just went to login. Pricing and plans. So it's a US dollar per registration and 2.95% of each registration. Is there a monthly as well for some of them? All plans start at the pro tier, so that's the basic. Okay, so it's the same as Eventbrite's model where that's the basic one. And what do they get? What do they hide from you on Eventbrite? It's like oh, I can't remember. It's like like you could run something basic, but then as soon as you want something real, so multi-person discounts, branding. This is pretty good. Like, that's not bad. 2.95% for the dollar. When we because we have built one of these, that is actually pretty high. So I think it's only theirs is like 49 cents or something, or P or whatever. And Eventbrite's expensive, but by other ones. Oh, let me zoom this out so I can fit more than one on the thing. And you can tell because they don't write their pricing down anywhere. Yes, this one's 49p, which is about 75 cents, I guess, something like that. But then look, it's plus 3.5, but actually the 99 cents is it depends on the average ticket price. So for Eventbrite, I'm guessing they have enough events that are like super expensive. Like if they do conferences, if you're you know, some of those things like hundreds, thousands of pounds sometimes for a ticket. So the percentage is where you make your money. But on low ticket items, you know, fun run stuff like that, where it's like 5, 10, 15, 25 pound entry, this small fixed price is where you make your money. And so the average price of a ticket, or the average price of a registrant, is a big factor on how you want to price, how you want to weight your pricing. So I'm assuming that for endurance events, they're probably not actually have no idea. You might not believe this, but I'm not an endurance runner, or a cyclist or anything like that. But I'm gonna guess they're not as expensive as like conferences and stuff. I have no idea. Because it's like, hey, can I pay thousands of pounds to be in intense physical pain? I don't know. But I would guess that 99 cents then makes up a lot of that. Don't forget that's their basic one. So this is 99,295, and this is 49,3.5. And in the UK, it's actually there's 20% on top of that, so it's more like, well, I guess the 20, it would depend on what your ticket price was, but this is expensive. That's how we ended up. That's basically how we ended up building one of these things, because everyone was like, "This is super expensive. Can we use the giving platform?" It's like, oh yeah, okay. So we built this as like a bit of a bolt-on. But for the number of features that you're getting, that doesn't feel crazy. And then this goes. So then this one is like 50p still, or 49p. Then 6.5%. That's pretty high. I wonder how high these ones go. Probably about the same, I would guess. 2.95 is not too far from 3. Yeah, okay. Probably worth it. Like, just to take this problem away from you. Like, I don't think I begrudge it. So, okay. That was amazing, but I don't know if it actually answered my original question about how they do the allocation. So can we actually try and buy tickets from our thing? Let's just enable it and see what happens. How do I get back to, and this is my, can I just enable? I genuinely have no idea how to actually enable my event now. Tools. I'll preview registration form. Oof. In the UI thing we were looking at yesterday, this is not the clearest one. Okay, so preview registration form. Okay, so here's my group, minimum 5, maximum of 5 participants. 1 team. Okay, so they do it so that you specify the team and then how many people are in that team. So you could, with our groups, you could do it the same way. So this is what the point I was trying to make earlier is that, like, when you have pricing adjustments over groups, like you have, if you buy 10 tickets, the price goes down. Well, here you've got 1 ticket, which is potentially multiple, but then people want the discount, but they want to be spread over different events. Okay, let's not worry too much about that. So then we can do this. So then I fill in the form for each person. Yeah, so I have to, most of them actually, this is slightly nicer because it only shows you 1. I mean, that's a long form. Right, and it does the upsells in each attendee. Again, this goes back to how we were modeling it. So we were looking at showing the merch at the event level. So we were looking at, like, how many tickets do you want of, like, how many adult tickets, how many kid tickets, and then, like, how many t-shirts do you want? This is bumping that to the per attendee level. So remember, you've got the per event level, which I guess is like the per order level. Then you've got the per group level, and then you've got the per attendee level. And again, this is all stuff we're just making up. We could do it however we wanted. But here you've only got the UI for 1, and then you click next, and hopefully it'll go to the, well, make it do the validation, then it'll go to the next one, which is how we had built ours. The other applications we were using just gave us 1 massive long screen. So let's go back and just do a team of, how do I go back? Start again. Start over. Do 1 team. Oh, I have to buy 5. Okay, that was annoying. And then checkout would just be pricing anyway. Okay. So they're baking the groups into the ticket types, which is what Eventbrite recommend to do as well. So rather than just having a ticket where you're like, hey, there's 10 people here and you could have 5 on one team and 5 on another team, it's like, no, you bake that into the purchasing experience, which I guess makes more sense. What I'm wondering is if like at small scale events that I guess there's, yeah, just the noisier people that we would hear, not noisier, but like in it, like the more feedback we would get would be from smaller events where they just wanted more custom stuff, because they're just at the precipice of where they're like, well, we could almost just do this manually. Whereas by the time you're running a mass participation event, you're like, yeah, we'll tell people what to do and they'll just do it. Okay. So putting the groups and the ticket types seems fine. That would solve the allocation problem, because then people aren't allowed to switch teams mid-purchase. So the team that they have picked on the way in will be there, and then it's only when you allow attendees to try and switch teams that you would then need to do the same quantity check. Like, is there space on that team? And that would need to do the same thing with concurrency as purchasing the ticket would. Like, you can't just jump into that team if someone has pre-allocated the ticket, and need to make sure if 2 people click the same button at the same time, that the app does the right thing. Okay. Right, I think we're kind of coming towards the end of like modeling stuff out. And where I'm getting to, especially with all of that stuff, is that we need a really simplified version of this to make it feasible to build out on the stream. Because if we just try and do all of that stuff, it's just too complicated and we won't be able to ship anything. So we're going to have to put some really strong constraints on and be like, no, we're only going to handle this type of event and like this thing. And we can talk about how we would model the other things, but it's just, it would take years to do. Like, I only work on this like once a week for a couple hours on a Sunday morning. So we just need something really stripped down, like a minimum viable version. And we don't offer any of the other stuff. So like all of the idea of doing like extra merchandising or anything like that goes out the window. Like, yeah, like the checkout on the event isn't flexible. Like, that is what I would love to do, but I'm just thinking of the practicalities of trying to get something shippable. Like, we just need a like something simple that we can ship that will let us do some cool stuff in Rails, let us do some hopefully cool stuff. Like, I'd love to get more back into like what's happening on the Hotwire side of things again. Like, I enjoyed all of that stuff from the previous streams. So we need to kind of come up with what those constraints are. And I think maybe having some like some like not case studies, but like typify the event. So if we had like real world examples. So what have I done in the past? Like well, let's take sporting events. So like a rowing event, and people needed to be and that was corporate teams, and that was the teams were set up by the organizers, and then attendees join the team. Like, yeah, that's actually another bit of this team thing that we haven't really talked about as much, which is pre-allocated teams. So the organizer sets them, then you join them. But let's say that you say, right, teams can have 10 people in them, or the slots go, but you need to buy a ticket type that has you now can only add 6 people to that team because you're like, hey, we're joining that team. Yeah, we really need to get this shippable. We just need something really stripped down. So that was a good, but it was a good case study because that one worked well in kind of the one that even in the simplified version of this we had before. So that could be a good case study. So corporate teams. There were lots of. There were another one. So the other one we did was like like a midnight walk thing. That then has the teams were like attendee defined, but people. These notes aren't in any really format. This is just how my brain is working. People booked in like smaller groups. So they have like a booking of 2 and a booking of 5 and a booking of 10 over here, but they all wanted to be on the same team. And somehow they needed to know the team name and they would always spell it wrong. And then they would accidentally create new teams and all that fun stuff. So we could focus on like once you've made the team and purchase those tickets, you would have a link that you could send out via text, I guess. I mean, I'm guessing the others already do that, but like that could be a fun thing to do. Like, hey, I've booked the first ones for Team X. You all use this link. Like, don't go off and type in like Team -X and Team space X1, and you end up with all these different things that then the organizer's like, oh, why are there 15 Team X's? So people booked in smaller groups. But needed join predefined ones. That's what's the keyboard shortcut for wrapping? It's I'm trying to remember this. Z. Okay. Put in smaller groups needed to join predefined ones. So where is a lot of this complexity coming from? Registration categories is ticket type. So we'll do no scheduled price changing. That seems fucking wildly complicated. Because that then has to exist per ticket type and all that other stuff. The thing... Yeah, the other thing that we had for some of them was we had this feature called dependent registrations, where like sometimes you need everyone's details because you need like for health and safety to have sent them some information, but some of them might be older or really young and then not have email addresses. So you basically needed to be able to explicitly delegate or one of the attendees on this in this order is responsible for one of the other ones. And so anything that you then try and do to the first attendee, like email them or whatever, we had to add another layer, which is like, we're actually going to email the responsible registrant, and they're going to get 2 emails, one for themselves and one for any other attendees that they're responsible for. And that was for a lot of compliance stuff that especially Good Causes asked for, because they needed everyone to have signed a waiver and they didn't want to do it on the day. Because definitely on the Good Causes side of things, there's a lot of like financial instability. Like they need to know they've got a certain number before certain things happen. They don't want like half full teams and stuff like that, because certain things only become viable when they've got enough people to do them. Okay. Just trying to look at like maybe we do more of what we did last night on the stream, which is build the UI out and build the most simple UI and work out what stays and what goes. Because even though like this is complicated and there's a lot here, some of it has to stay. Like for an event registration app, like you need to know the dates and all that crap, all that vital information. But in Eventbrite, you could just get up and running with just this first page and one ticket type. So maybe we just work out what stays by designing it. Like, I'm happy to do some UI stuff on the Sunday morning streams. I don't know if, like, I know that the tagline for this channel is like Ruby on Rails streaming, but basically today all we've done is look at other people's apps anyway, so we don't actually write a lot of code on these streams at the moment. I think maybe we could do more sketch stuff and work out what makes the cut to build. And that might actually be a way of working out what stays and what goes. Because I think I've got a good idea in my head of like how we would structure stuff, I think. No idea if it's any good or not. But then having a UI to go with it, I think will help us answer a bunch of questions. And I think the default, if there's anything that's like not 100% staying, the default has to be that it goes. We're just going to build the simplest group registration app that we can and try and allow people to have as much control over those groups as possible. And I want it to be like, let's try and do something halfway between Eventbrite and something like Active. So half, like, this specializes in like these group events, and this one is more generic. It would be cool if you could do something on that more generic page. And the other one we looked at really early on was like meetup.com, which is really interesting because it's more like interest registration rather than purchasing. They did have a purchase API, but it was really on like, you're just indicating that you're going. And so definitely on the good causes side, we would get right across the spectrum. They'd be like, hey, we're running a mass participation event. There's going to be like 1,000 people there, blah, blah, blah. But then you would have, oh, no, we have this coffee morning with like 20 people. But every week we need to know how many of the 20 people are coming. And also like, oh, there was a common request there. It was like, oh, can we charge them every month and stuff like that? So they're like that single organization had loads of different types of event, whereas normally you would have lots of different types of organizations, each running a specific type of event. That's an interesting shift. Yeah, I think let's leave it there for today. It's kind of a short one. Oh, hello. So quantifiable friend very much. Explain. Okay, have a wonderful day. Hooking up forms or whatever you're doing today. I'm gonna leave it here for today. I might try and run. I really enjoyed getting back into UI design last night. I'm not sure like what we've got on for this week around here, but I might try and do a couple more before, or like at least one more before next Sunday. But if not, I think we might try and do some UI design on this stream next Sunday, so just to prep for that, rather than like, not that we looked at much code, blah, 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 but you get it. Okay, in that case, I'm going to go. Have a wonderful day and week, everyone. Enjoy yourselves. And I will see you, if not midweek for the UI stream, then I will see you next week for half UI, half working out what we're going to stay and go and like what we're going to actually ship on the stream over the next few months. Amazing. Have a wonderful week.